Yes, I have loved you with an everlasting love, an everlasting love, an everlasting love. Therefore, with loving kindness have I drawn you, drawn you, drawn you.
Hello.
Are we recording?
Yeah, we're recording.
Okay, I guess, Chastity looks a little disheveled or whatever. The thing is, we've both been sick. And then they messed up Chastity's work schedule so that we weren't able to do our podcast at the time we usually do it. So anyway, we know that through all these circumstances, the devil's fighting us in different ways. And we're not surprised because, like I said before, the last thing the devil wants is for some to expose him and his tricks so that he can't keep deceiving everybody. And that's what this is going to be about. This is actually the second part of our teaching about Halloween. And so I had said that I would give more specific examples of occult practices that are promoted by Halloween and explain some more about them. And so by exposing the tricks of the devil, then sometimes, and we're prepared for the idea that he's going to try to oppose us and see if he can. But that's why the Bible says to be vigilant and watch and be aware that the devil's going to try his tricks. And so we're not really surprised that he's doing it. We just know to withstand him and to keep plugging away doing what we're supposed to do. And that's what all of us need to remember to do when we're being attacked. And it's kind of like what we talked about that one time, because Chastity brought up about Job and how some people, they're not doing anything wrong and yet they suffer. And the other side of that is sometimes we have bad things happen to us because we're doing the right thing. And so to some extent the devil does have some power, but he doesn't have the same power that God has. And so he will try to convince us that he's going to win and that we just need to give up trying to do what God wants us to do and to give into it. But we know better than that. We know not to do that. And so that's why I said, I've learned not to be afraid of the devil because that's exactly what he wants. But that I'm also aware that he's actually afraid of me because I'm exposing him and helping people learn what the tricks are so they don't fall into any of these traps. And so one of the things I want to do is talk about some of those traps that are encouraged a lot at Halloween, a lot of times other times of the year too, but it's very prevalent. And people think, a lot of times they think, oh, it's just for fun. And I've had people tell me that when I tell them, well, it's dangerous to get involved with this, that, or that. Oh, but I just do it for fun. Well, in the first place, why would you want to participate in something, and why is it fun if you know that it's really not a good thing to do anyway? And so I want to try to explain a few more things about some of these common practices, and then I'll be able to explain a little bit about how that works and why it's a problem. And then I just have a few scriptures to share about it to explain further, but most of this is going to be a big discussion about this, and we never know how it's going to lead, because God leads both of us. And as you can tell, Chastity's tired and worn out, and right now doesn't care what her hair looks like, because we're just glad we're able to go ahead and do this, because this is the thing we're supposed to do, and this is what the devil's been trying to fight us and keep us from doing it, but he's not going to win. So anyway, I just wanted to cover some of these things that are practiced a lot, especially at Halloween, and talk about what's wrong with them and why it's a deception and why it's not really a healthy thing to do, spiritually or in any other way. So anyway, of course, we've already talked about witchcraft, and but then there's seances and Ouija boards and belief in ghosts and tarot cards, psychics, mediums, fortune tellers, astrology, horoscopes, and then I'm also going to mention about talismans, or like good luck charms, objects that people put their faith in to think that it's going to protect them from things or whatever. So anyway, I'm just going to explain some things that I am aware of that I don't think most people are aware of. And first of all, I want to mention that what ghosts actually are, they're actually demons. And we've talked about spiritual warfare, we've talked about demons, and demons know how to appear the way someone that had lived before and died can appear. And they partly because they've been around all this time, and they've been around like for millions of years, and they've studied humanity. They know how people act. They know all about these people, and that's exactly why they're able to imitate someone who's died to their loved ones when they do a seance and they try to call up the dead, because that entity that comes can appear so much like that loved one that died, that the family will, say, well, it sounds like him, it looks like him, and they are convinced that, oh yeah, it's them, and then they'll say things that only they would have known, or whatever, some family secret. Well, see, all this is a deception, because these demons know how to do that. And in the Bible, it's called familiar spirits, because these people that they're manifesting are familiar. And they're familiar to the people. And the thing is, people that do these things, psychics and people that try to do these seances or, pull up the dead, at first they think they're helping people because it seems to help their grief some, for that person to come back and tell them things that they felt like they needed to hear. But then in the long run, it actually does more harm than good. And the thing is, there is such a thing as God giving people visions of their loved ones to give them reassurance, if that's what they need. And God knows how to help people in their grief. And that's a separate thing. He can do that without any person, any medium trying to conjure up a dead person and get them to appear and talk to people. And so that's a whole different thing, and it is demonic to do things like that, and that's why it is dangerous. And I wanted to explain a little bit about why when people go to fortune tellers, how a lot of times it seems to come true what they say. The devil wants us to put our faith in these things rather than in God. And so what he does, he has a plan for people. and it's for their destruction in some way, for bad things to happen. So he might have the fortune teller first tell them something good that they want to hear, but then tell them some awful thing like, oh, well, you know, if you don't do this or this, then you're going to die in a car accident in 3 years, and you know, all these predictions. Well, the reason why sometimes these things seem to come true is because these were Satan's plans for that person. And then when the fortune teller says it, they put their faith in that. And they help bring about Satan's plan. They believe in it. And just like us believing in God and his plan helps bring it about in our lives because we're putting our trust in him, we do the same thing with Satan. We put our faith in him and his predictions and what he wants, and that's when it comes to pass. However, those things can be broken. Those are like curses, and they can be broken in the name of Jesus, so those things don't have to come to pass. But if people keep going to fortune tellers and believing it and getting hooked on that, they help bring about the very things they don't want in their life. So it is a trick. And so, anyway, and then I wanted to say one more thing, too, about these, like, good luck charms and stuff like that. You know, people have different objects that they look to for, you know, rabbit's foots and all these kinds of things. Sometimes they're called talismans, but people put their faith in those objects, and that's kind of the same thing as idolatry, because you're putting your faith in an object. Now, another aspect of this, though, that most people don't realize, even Christians who begin to put their faith in Christian symbols, and they'll want to wear a cross because they think that cross will protect them from something bad, or a picture of Jesus, or, you know, something. They think that that object has the power to protect them. But once again, they're looking to that object instead of God himself. And so really it's the same thing. It just sounds like it's a good thing just because you're using a different symbol that's been Christianized. And so these are all things to be aware of, because it's Satan's plan to get us to seek guidance from and get us to put our faith in something other than God. And so, but like I said, Satan has power, but it's limited. God's power is greater. And so I'm actually going to read a story in Exodus that shows Satan trying to use his own magicians for power, and then how God dealt with that. And then I just have three other small scriptures. There's the scriptures all through the Bible warning against these things. But I found just three small ones that I think will get the point across so that we can have our discussion about it. But the first thing I'm going to do is read that story in Exodus. Okay, this is Exodus 7, verses 8 through 12. And the Lord spake unto Moses and unto Aaron, saying, When Pharaoh shall speak unto you, saying, Show a miracle for you, then thou shalt say unto Aaron, Take thy rod and cast it before Pharaoh, and it shall become a serpent. And Moses and Aaron went in unto Pharaoh, and they did so, as the Lord had commanded. And Aaron cast down his rod before Pharaoh and before his servants, and it became a serpent. Then Pharaoh also called the wise men and the sorcerers and the magicians of Egypt. They also did in like manner with their enchantments. For they cast down every man his rod, and they became serpents. but Aaron's rod swallowed up their rods. So in other words, yes, they had a certain amount of power too, but then God's overcame it. And basically it's like God saying, okay, yeah, you can do a certain amount here, but God's still going to overrule that. And all these rods that became serpents got swallowed up by the serpent that had been made from Aaron's rod. So that's an illustration right there of how, to some extent, Satan will try to use his power. Okay, and then like I said before, instead of trying to keep bookmarks in here, I found out that most of the time I just need to look things up. So it's because the bookmarks always fall out. Okay, so one of the verses that warns us about those things is Leviticus 19:31. Okay. Regard not them that have familiar spirits, neither seek after wizards to be defiled by them. I am the Lord your God. I'm going to get a drink, and then I just have a couple of other small ones like that. Okay, the next one is Deuteronomy 18. And it's 10 and 11 and 14. Okay. There shall not be found among you any one that maketh his son or his daughter to pass through the fire, or that useth divination, or an observer of times, or an enchanter, or a witch, or a charmer, or a consulter with familiar spirits, or a wizard, or a necromancer. Now, a necromancer is someone who talks to the dead too, in case you didn't know what that word meant. Okay, and then the last one I'm going to read is Isaiah 8:19. And I'm just barely trying to get over being sick, but we're not going to let the devil stop us. That's the way you got to be. You got to keep hanging in there. Okay, Isaiah 8:19. Okay, why did I go to chapter 19? Ah, okay. Here's 8. Okay. And it says, and when they shall say unto you, seek unto them that have familiar spirits, and unto wizards that peep and that mutter, should not a people seek unto their God, for the living to the dead? So that was one of the things God had to say about that. And it's true. I mean, why would you want to talk to dead people when you can talk to the live ones? And actually, our loved ones that go on to be with the Lord, they are still alive. They're just not here right now, and we can have peace and know that they're with God. And like I said, sometimes God will reveal in special ways to help people overcome their grief, but we should not go seeking another person who says, oh, I'll call up your dead loved one and let them come back and talk to you, because in the long run it does more harm than good. So we are going to have a discussion, and I'm sure Chastity has things going on in her head right now.
Yeah, so when somebody is talking to somebody who's dead, how do they know the difference between when God is sending that person back to send them a message or when it's a demonic thing?
Because you wouldn't have to call them up. See, when you go to a seance, the person there is supposedly the one with the power to bring that person up. So instead of asking God to show you that person, you're going to a person who does these seances to contact the dead. And you shouldn't need another human being to do that for you if God can just reveal it to you in his own way. And so that's the difference right there.
So basically it wouldn't require a middleman.
No, it shouldn't. So that's why they're called mediums, because they're in the middle.
Right.
And God wants us to look to him. Now, he will work through people, but we know it's him when he does it. And he's not going to just say, oh, you've got to go to this person, because they can go to that person in the spirit, and then that person. We shouldn't be running all over trying to find guidance through other means other than going directly to God. Because, see, God is our source, and when we need something, we're to go to him.
Right. So basically it's like this. So when my sister, who thinks that I hear from God, because I do sometimes, and then she tries to ask me whether she should marry the guy she's dating.
Yeah.
She should be asking God herself instead of trying to ask me.
But then she says, but I have trouble hearing from God.
It's because she never shuts up. So.
Well, regardless of that.
But the point is, she's going about it the wrong way when she does that. Mm-hmm.
She said, oh, well, Chandler's supposed to be a prophet. I'll wake him up and ask him if I should marry this dude. See, and she kept asking me too, and I said, look, this is going to have to be your decision.
Right.
She couldn't decide for herself because she didn't know how to really listen to God. She had no confidence. She wasn't going directly to God. And that's a good example, except...
Well, but yeah, I think it was a good example, because here's the thing, is what people do is they go to some other person and try to get answers from them, get that person to call up the dead, or get them to, hear from God or whatever.
Well, that's making that person into God.
But yeah, basically that gives that person all the power.
Right, so that person is your idol. You're looking to that person for help.
Right.
Instead of going to God and then letting God choose how he wants to work or who he wants to work through. You'll know it's God when he reveals himself to you, and if that person comes to you in the right spirit and you're already waiting on God for an answer, and then they come and they're able to give you the answer from God. But if they're all self-proclaiming, oh, I got all the answers because I'm like God, you know there's a problem.
Well, yeah, see, first of all, that leads into, people doing it as a business and earning money and stuff. And people even advertise. Like, psychics are advertising their businesses and weird stuff like that.
But like we're saying, even church people do that.
Right.
Oh, I have the gift of discernment. I have dreams. I know how to interpret
And they try to
dreams.
get you to give them money. That's how cult leaders work,
Yeah.
So I feel like that is a good way of protecting yourself, is to think that if God needs to give you a message, or a deceased relative is the one who you need to communicate with for closure or peace of mind or whatever, then God could arrange that without you having to pay money.
Right.
See, because here's the thing is,
God's gifts are free, and he has done that for people.
Yeah.
And it's been a complete cure. It took away their grief. They felt confident that everything's okay. They just needed that reassurance. And, but they weren't expecting it. It was something God intervened and did.
Right.
To help them. But they were crying out to God saying, how do I get over this? I don't know what to do. I feel like I need this. But he knows how to answer our prayers, and we have to keep looking to him and not to Satan, not to the instruments of Satan.
Yeah, so here's what it's like. To put it in computer terms, actually, God is like free and open source, basically, whereas the devil is like proprietary, like Microsoft or Apple or Amazon, where they lock you in to where you can only buy your stuff from them, and their ebooks only work on their devices, and they trap you so they can continue to get money from you.
Yeah.
Whereas when something's a gift for free, you know it comes without any agenda.
Right.
You know, that's a huge difference.
It's a
I feel
free
like.
gift from God.
Yeah.
And He just wants us to look to Him
Yeah.
for help and comfort, and to put our faith in what He has for us instead of the things of the devil and getting deceived by those things.
Yeah, like and the other topic about, you know, basically having an idol like the cross necklaces, how they have a symbol and they think that their cross necklace is going to protect them from
Yeah.
the devil or something weird.
Yeah.
Not realizing, first of all, that's just a chunk of metal or wood or something
Yeah.
that some human forged.
Right.
You know, it's not.
So you're looking to that instead of God Himself.
Yeah, people.
We need to look to God to take care of us.
Yeah, now.
And if we want to give our testimony through some symbol that we wear, just kind of like my shirt,
Yeah.
I'm letting people know that I'm
Right.
supportive of my transgender daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wear this Mama Bear shirt to show that. But I don't have my faith in that. It's just a testimony. These shirts that I wear or anything like that. And if some people think that they're showing that they're Christian by some of the jewelry they wear, you know, that's fine, I guess. But it's just putting their faith in that is no different than any other kind of good luck charm.
Well, and here's the thing: is it's not so much about whether you or not you have symbols, but what the point of the symbol is.
Mm-hmm.
Because people use symbols for all kinds of things, just like you explained there, and like the white rose is my symbol, and the checkerboards and stuff like that, and they all have meanings to me.
Right.
But I think what's strange about it is the way that some Christians are using these cross necklaces is they are in violation of the Ten Commandments, one of the Ten Commandments about, you know, not worshiping any graven image, like worshiping man-made things and having that be an idol.
Yeah, well, that's just it. The symbol itself isn't necessarily a bad thing, or even a piece of art because of what it symbolizes. But if you start bowing down to that piece of art, or you start looking to your jewelry for protection, or to anything else, that's the same thing as idolatry. Because remember I told you that demons actually inhabit those idols. And so when people would bow down to the idols, they were really worshiping demons. And so it was more than just a piece of wood or whatever. And the same thing happens with other types of idols. And so there's just a lot of tricks of the devil that we want to warn people about and help them understand, since these things are so common at Halloween. And we talked about what's wrong with that holiday and how people should handle it in a good way. I thought we'd better address some of these common practices that people think, oh, that's just fun. I go to a fortune teller for fun. I do a seance for fun. I play with a Ouija board for fun. And they don't realize they're opening up the door to some really awful
And see,
things.
a lot of these things I know nothing about. I know absolutely nothing about them because I've never gone to a seance or whatever the hell that is, because I don't know.
Well, yeah, well, that's good.
You know, so.
Yeah, but some people have, and they think it's harmless.
Well,
and it's not harmless.
And some people take their kids, usually best part of Halloween, they take their kids to haunted houses where they probably do these kinds of things too.
Yeah, well, haunted houses, yeah. See, if you put your faith in ghosts, that's the same as worshiping demons too, because these ghosts, you know, it's to scare people, but it's also supposed to deceive them into thinking that the dead are coming back to life when really it's demons. And if you realized what you were dealing with, you'd stay as far away from it as you could. And see, because I didn't raise you to be around that kind of thing. I would not allow you around things that I thought were dangerous. And yet a lot of people get involved in it and think, oh, there's nothing wrong with this. This is harmless. And I've had people very deeply involved in psychic stuff that'll tell you, oh, it's all harmless, because they're so deceived. They don't know any better anymore. They've been so deceived by Satan. And that doing tarot cards, all that stuff, it's all part of the same thing. And like even the people are all the time wanting to talk about what sign were you born under? Are you a Virgo, or are you a this or that? See, and they think it's all just fun. But why would something like that be fun? It's a part of astrology. It's part of looking to the stars and when you were born and telling your fate or your future that way. It's no different than any other type of idolatry or fortune telling or, looking to something else. Now, I think that a lot of the reason people do this stuff is they are hungry for the supernatural, because they really need to find the real things that are in God. And so these are counterfeits of what God has for us. It's like a counterfeit Christianity to try to make people think they're finding something good because they're wanting to have contact with the supernatural. That's because people need to know God. And a lot of churches are not really helping people know God the way they need to. And a lot of the church services don't operate in the gifts of the Holy Spirit. So the only way people can find anything supernatural is to go into Satan's realm and participate in the devil's form of supernatural things. So these are a lot of heavy concerns that the devil didn't want me to bring up. And that's why we've been attacked by the devil, but we're not going to let him win.
Well, okay, here's a whole other thing now. You can explain, obviously, why these things are not good because you're putting your faith in the wrong thing. But there's another aspect of this that we need to talk about, is that these things only work on those who don't know math, who don't know science, who don't know how the world works. Like when people get superstitious about numbers, for instance. Trying to rename the 13th floor of a hotel as the 14th floor. Like, it's still the 13th floor just because you rename it.
Superstitions like
that.
that.
Yeah, superstitions. People have this weird idea, or even the horoscopes thing with, the sign, supposedly I'm a Taurus because I was born in May. There's a certain range of dates, how it works supposedly. But here's the thing about that, is the time in which you're born probably has a lot to do with when you were conceived, which is when your parents had sex, and it doesn't really so people can sort of control what time their children is born approximately, but see that attaching a special meaning to it, people who were born at this time of year have this personality, and Monique believed in that kind of stuff too, and I'm like, she's not very smart, that's what's frustrating, So basically this kind of stuff, it works on the uneducated mind who doesn't realize the way that dates and times and numbers and symbols work and what their purpose is. I'll look at the pentagram or the hexagram, which are both used as satanic symbols in some contexts, but I look at them from what they are from a regular polygon perspective, and how if you have a circle, you have equal distant points along the circle, and then you draw lines from those points, you can form all kinds of shapes. And that's what it is geometrically. But then people who don't know the geometry or know how the shape is constructed, then they look at, this means this, but no, somebody had to tell them it means that. Because if you can, I can see a number, a color, and a shape, and I can see exactly what it means, but the faith that people have in these symbols and these numbers is because somebody told them. And they're really taking that person's word for it, that thing means it, because they were told. Because if there weren't people trying to promote this horoscope stuff, for instance, nobody would be like, you were born in August, so of course you have that personality. That's stupid. Somebody had to brainwash them with that ideology
And they're told that certain people born in certain months are more compatible with this other one that's born in that month. And they try to predict their whole future and who they should hang out with and tell them what to do about everything.
Yeah.
And you can see how this just all doesn't lead us anywhere good.
Yeah, and like when people are putting their faith in psychics who tell them things will happen in the future, then those people will act in a way accordingly that will make those things happen.
Right.
Like, for example, let's just say some random person that I made up, Barbara, goes to some psychic named Deborah, okay? And then, so Deborah tells Barbara that she's going to marry a man named Steve. There's always a Steve in my example, so.
Or a Bob.
Yeah, or Bob. And then Barbara, so she gets on her online dating things and she looks for every man named Steve. And so she's got this in her mind. She's going to marry a man named Steve. So she keeps dating Steves until she finds one she likes. And then she's going to assume he's the one. So she marries him. But unfortunately, the marriage doesn't work out because Steve is gay. And then he divorces her and marries a man named Bob.
Oh, I knew Bob. I knew Bob would come up somewhere in that illustration.
There's always a Bob.
There's always a Bob, and every now and then there's a Steve.
But the point of the moral of this story is that people act to make things happen when they believe they're told a certain thing's supposed to happen, and they'll act to make that sort of thing happen.
Right.
You know, so like they may do crazy things so that it will happen. Whereas if they had never consulted that psychic in the first place, and if they never believed that, then maybe they wouldn't do so much dumb stuff.
Right, right. You know, so that's why I had mentioned before, we need to seek wisdom from God. And God alone. Now, if He wants to speak to us through a human or through an event, God knows how to speak to us. And like I said, before I really knew God well, and He was trying to get to know me and get me to respond to Him, He spoke to me a lot through music, because that was something I could relate to. And then He came in the form of a unicorn named Honesty, to chastity, to reveal Himself. He knows how to reveal Himself to all of us, but we have to look to Him. We have to trust Him to do it in the right way, and not just run to any human being who says they've got all the answers or they can make something happen, because then you're putting your faith in all kinds of lying spirits. That's another thing that some demons are called. They're called lying spirits. They'll lie to you. They'll deceive you. And that's why we're warning against those kinds of activities. And I knew we weren't able to cover it all when we talked before about Halloween, because we just were getting the basics down about that. But this is all stuff that people need to know as a part of spiritual warfare, what to watch out for, so that we can have a nice, even path toward God and find His perfect will for us and not get led astray by things like that. So anyway, you got any more to say about Steve or Bob?
Oh, not right now. But I wish them all the happiness.
There's our comic relief again.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we're just pushing through the challenges that Satan's throwing our way, because we know what's going on, and we're determined to please God and do what He wants. And we're not at all surprised that He would try to stop us from sharing these things, because he's been deceiving the whole world for so long, and he wants to be able to keep doing it. And the more he gets exposed for what he really is, and people being pointed to God instead, the less power he has over people's lives. And we need to recognize that even if Satan tries to pretend to be so powerful, God's serpent or rod will swallow up Satan's and win in the end and have the final victory over things.
Yeah, about that story, why were they serpents? Why did the rods turn into serpents? What's the significance of that?
What would you rather have them turn into?
Ponies.
Yeah, but then they'd have to swallow up all the other ponies.
Why do they have to eat each other? Can't they?
Well, those serpents, they were from Satan, and so they got eaten by God's serpent. And then they turned back into one big old rod, and those other rods were just plain gone.
Well, I hope there must have been some reason for that. I thought the significance of the serpent was relevant because, see, here's what I don't get. See, it was supposedly, like in the Garden of Eden, the serpent that supposedly deceived Adam and Eve.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to figure out is, like, I'm not saying that serpents are always of the devil. I don't want to be racist like that, but at the same time, it just seems kind of odd. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because there's also some other references to serpents in the Bible that people have had their theological beliefs about. Like, for example, I don't know if you know the story about the brass serpent that they made, and then the people looked at, see, they had these bad snakes biting them and killing them, but when they looked at the bronze serpent, then those other snakes couldn't kill them anymore. And it was on a pole. It was put on a pole, and I have heard it explained that the reason why it was a serpent on the pole is that it actually represented how Christ became sin for us. He knew no sin, but he became sin for us. And so that represented, how Christ took our place and provided salvation and deliverance for us.
Interesting.
And I know you have some issues about the crucifixion and stuff. So.
Well, yeah. Well, here's the thing, though. I mean, obviously, I believe God can come in any form, necessary, just like a unicorn. I mean, so why not a serpent for some specific purpose? But I'm trying to understand the meaning of it. There might be something I don't understand about that, but I mean, it's almost like there had to be a serpent to be sort of the anti-venom, like the opposite of the other snakes.
Yeah, well, I think that's what would get Pharaoh's attention. That you don't just take a stick that's, not an alive being and throw it on the ground and then it turns into a snake. And people are usually scared of snakes too. And then take it by the tail, pull it back up, and it's a rod again. See, that was the miracle that was supposed to show Pharaoh that they were really from God. God gave him that as a symbol to show that. But then he just said, well, I'll just get my magicians. They could do the same thing. And up to a point, they were able to do some of the same things too, like with the plagues and stuff like that. But there came a limit where God superseded the power of the devil. And so, yeah, I don't know if I can fully answer your serpent question.
Right.
But, I mean, would you have rather it been some other kind of animal?
I just feel like they should have been ponies that played chess or something and solved their problem that way.
Solve their problem? Well, but this was a contest between the magicians of Pharaoh and God's prophets that were trying to speak for him. And it would have been nice if we could just play chess to solve everything.
See, that's my solution to everything.
Well, it'd be nice if we could do it that way and we could solve a lot of wars that way without having to fight.
Yep.
But unfortunately, we are in a battle. We're in a war with spiritual forces, and we have to be aware of it. And so, you got any more to say about that?
No, the more I say it, the dumber it'll get. Because I'm tired.
Yeah, well, we're plugging away and trying to complete what we're supposed to be doing, and we'll just have to see how this all goes and what direction that God's going to lead us. But we're going to keep trying to do this, even if we do have to do it on different days, like we had to do it on a Wednesday this time, because like I said, Chastity's work schedule's all screwed up right now, and we're trying to get something stable so we know what day that she even has to come here and do things with me like this. But we could have just given up. Oh, well, I'm sick, but no, we're not going to do that. And I don't know why the devil even keeps trying to mess with me, because it doesn't work. The more he tries to stop me, the more determined I get. So I don't know what he thinks he's gonna win or something. I don't know. I don't think that's ever gonna happen. Do you?
Well, it depends on whether we're talking about chess or some other kind of winning.
Okay, I'll tell you what. Why don't you go play chess with Steve and Bob, and then let's forget that you were so tired you didn't know what in the world you were saying during this podcast, okay? Have fun and play chess and do your computer programming or whatever you like to do, but just make sure you keep Steve and Bob entertained, all right?
Yep.
And I think we better quit this before it gets any worse.
Yeah, I was too tired for this, but the show must go on.
Okay, well, thanks for listening to us as we try to cover all this ground, and hopefully there's going to be times we can talk about more pleasant things, but we always have our chastity to make things funny no matter what we're talking about. So we will, I guess we'll get off, right?
All right. Yeah. Bye, people.
Bye, people.
Let my people go. Thus saith the Lord of Israel.
I hope we're off by now.
Oh, no, not yet. I had to say that because I was thinking very Prince of Egypt, and the whole story got me inspired.
Oh, my goodness.
Sorry, I'm tired. Goodbye.